Hello and welcome to the She Reads Romance Books podcast, the ultimate show for romance book lovers looking for the best books worth reading. I'm your host, Leslie Murphy, and in each short episode, I share my favorite book list of recommendations so you know exactly what to add to your must-read list. Join me as I explore the romance genre and have fun collecting book boyfriends along the way, because life is better with a love story. Hey readers! Today, I'm sharing one of my favorite lists to put together each year, and that is my list of best book boyfriends. I'm not shy in admitting that one of my favorite things about reading romance is collecting new book boyfriends. Every year, there are always a few book boyfriends who stand out as my favorite heroes in romance and claim their spot on my best book boyfriends list. Now, this past year, I read just over 120 romance books and definitely found a number of romance heroes I'm still swooning over and won't soon forget. Now, some of them are from books that made my best romance books of 2023, but not necessarily all of them. Either way, these are the romance heroes that have that, certain something that makes them super special and stand out from all of the rest. Now, typically, I just keep my list of best book boyfriends to the new releases of the year. But for this year's list, I'm sort of changing things up a bit because if I just kept it to new releases, that would mean I was going to be excluding some amazing men that I met this year. So for this year's list, I'm including both my favorite book boyfriends from this year's new releases, as well as highlighting a few favorite book boyfriends from the throwback titles that I also read this year. So if you're curious to know who stole my heart in 2023, let's dive into this episode so you can find out who. But after listening, be sure to hop on over to shereadsromancebooks.com and check out my book boyfriend page for all my past lists of the best book boyfriends in romance, as well as my favorite book lists of romance heroes. So make sure you don't miss that. Now, these book boyfriends are not in any particular order, but I am going to start things off with Xaden from Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I know I've talked a lot about Fourth Wing on the podcast this year because it's just so good and it's been one of the best-selling books of the year. So I won't really go into what the book is about. I'll just focus on the hero of the hour, who is Xaden. Gosh, how I loved this book boyfriend for his quiet authority, his leadership, but most importantly, for the way that he pushed Violet in a way that really helped her succeed in the writer's quadrant when he had every reason not to, right? He just, the way he acted, was more of a man and a friend to her than even her own friend Dane, who was there with her. Plus, there were those moments when they spoke telepathically that were just completely awesome. I loved those moments. Now, while I totally fell for Xaden in Fourth Wing, I think he absolutely stole my heart after reading Iron Flame, the second book in the series that released this past November. His vulnerability in that book really hit me someplace deep, and his profession of love and adoration for Violet was totally swoon-worthy. I love him so much, and I'm so excited because I cannot believe we're going to get even more of him in the future books to come in the Fourth Wing series. Xaden, love you so much. You're definitely a favorite book boyfriend of 2023. Now, my next favorite book boyfriend of the year is Logan from On the Plus Side by Jenny L. Ho. Now, Logan may have been hidden behind the camera in On the Plus Side, but when he stepped out from behind it and supported Everly, it was honestly everything. Now, as a quick recap of this story, in case you haven't yet read it, because I think it only just recently released here in December, I think. It is a reality TV romance book where Everly Winters is selected to be a contestant on the show On the Plus Side, which strives to give people makeovers while also sort of changing the narrative around the word fat. So Logan
He's the cameraman for the show who basically follows Everly around everywhere. And he's just this perfect cinnamon roll hero, if those are your favorites. Now, he's sort of, you come to learn, struggling with his own body image, but the man didn't hold back when it came to his care and the growing affection that he had for Everly. Book boyfriends who are supportive, kind, and have absolutely hot forearms like him are tops in my book, which is why he made this year's list. So you don't want to miss Logan from On the Plus Side. My next favorite book boyfriend is Jack from Love Theoretically by Ali Hazelwood, which definitely made my list of best romance books of 2023 because I fell for him so hard. Now, Jack is your typical Hazelwood, male hero. He's a bit of an enigma at the beginning. He's a man of influence and power, yet quiet and sort of hard to read. I loved how Elsie couldn't read the guy when she normally can. Now, he is the epitome of an amazing book boyfriend because he truly saw Elsie for who she was, and he pushed her in a good way to break out of her patterns. Because if you haven't yet read this book, Elsie is a theoretical physicist who's, barely making ends meet as an adjunct professor. So she also poses as a fake girlfriend for people who need it. And she kind of molds herself to be whatever her dates need her to be. But Jack didn't let her mold herself to what she thought he wanted and instead demanded honesty. And that is what I think enabled them to really build a strong relationship from the start. While holding her to honesty, he really became this safe spot for her, being there when she struggled and always seeing her to her core. It was beautiful and the best part of the story, which is why he made my list. Now, on to the next one. I'm kind of flying through these, but my next best book boyfriend of 2023 is Beat from Wreck the Halls by Tessa Bailey. So Beat and Melody, they only met once for me again as adults to get their famous rock star mothers back together for a final musical performance on Christmas Eve. Now, even at Beat's first meeting with Melody when they were teenagers, you could sense Beat and Melody's connection, and his protection of her even then was sort of everything. I love a hero and book boyfriend who sort of weighs his decisions based on how they will impact the one they've come to care for, and that's, Beat to a T. He was, of course, pretty sexy too, which never hurts to improve your chances to get on this list. But it was really his inner character that also really shined in Wreck the Halls by Tessa Bailey. Loved Beat. Connor from The True Love Experiment by Christina Loren is my next favorite book boyfriend because it's often the reluctant book boyfriends that make my favorite list. Now, Connor, he may have gotten roped into producing the True Love Experiment reality TV show for which Fizzy was the main contestant. But his sort of one-off post-show interviews with Fizzy were everything to this book because you could truly see the man that he is and the feelings that were developing for her. They were honestly the best part of this romance book and made me fall super hard for Connor right along with Fizzy. The dialogue that Christina Loren wrote for those moments was just perfection. If you haven't read this book, check it out just for those. But of course, he too is also super sexy as a devoted single father whose career choices were influenced so that he could stay close to where his daughter is or was. So I just love this man so much, and I was happy to give him a spot on this list. Now, let's see. Another great man to make this list is Nash from Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score. Gosh, where to start with Nash? He's a man, right, with a heart of gold and who would do anything for the small town of Knockemout, even when he's struggling with depression and PTSD. He is the type of hero with a wounded heart that I just eat up, and Score totally delivered on this one with such a perfect man who finally accepted like his own imperfections and actually help to deal with them. I cannot wait to see who will play him in the Things We Never Got Over TV series, which needs to be made ASAP if I have anything to say about it. I don't know if you heard that the books in the series are going to be made into of a TV show, which is awesome. But, I loved Knox from first book, but man, did Nash steal my heart with this one this year as the cop with the heart of gold. Let's see. Another cutie that stole my heart was Callum from A Holly Jolly Ever After by Julie Murphy and Sierra Simone. These two ladies, gosh, are really onto something with their holiday romance series, and I hope that it continues with the next boy band member. But Callum was it for this year. He is one of those romance heroes who just makes you smile anytime he's on the page. I adored his relationship with his family and with his former band members, but his understanding and his openness and just pure sweetness when it came to Winnie was gold. This book was, as I said, super sweet, but it was also really spicy and just a joy to read because Callum was so easygoing and such a great teacher and boyfriend to Winnie. He's definitely one of the best relationship coach boyfriends I have read in a while. Next up, as one of my all-time favorite book boyfriends this year is Nolan from Check-in Mate by Allie Hazelwood. Freaking love Nolan. Gosh, I could totally picture him in my mind's eye while reading Check-in Mate, just how he loved Mallory from within, showing her, in his own way until she could finally see it for herself. He was never selfish, but saw his true mate in the fellow chess expert, and it didn't take many words to see it or to feel it. He was truly a man of few words, but I loved it. I have a total soft spot for book boyfriends who are that silent type, but when he did use his words, gosh, they were everything. And I keep saying that word on this podcast, but gosh, these guys are everything in so many ways. I had to remind myself several times in that this guy was only 20 years old because he just seems so grounded and mature beyond those 20 years. I'm still swooning over his thoughtfulness and his devotion, which is why he's on my favorite book boyfriend list of this year. Next, now I have to gush over Nate from In the Likely Event by Rebecca Yarros. There is nothing like a book boyfriend who's a true hero, and that is Nate. The man was dedicated to his career as a military man and was the epitome of like an elite soldier. Despite having his heart broken, he's now tasked with protecting Izzy with all that he had, and he even looked out for her sister while they were in Afghanistan, and the country is basically like crumbling around them, and they need to like evacuate ASAP. I loved him in every flashback to their previous meetups, and of course in the present where he was all about business as her bodyguard. And I'll never forget what his call sign is. Gosh, and the way that Yaros used the movie Lady Hawk, which is one of my absolute favorite romance movies, as a metaphor for their relationship. This book and gosh, Nate, the book boyfriend, totally surprised me this year. I loved it so much, and I just love Nate, and I'm going to have to reread this one really soon because I loved it so much. All right, the next book boyfriend to earn a spot on my list is Will from Practice Makes Perfect by Sarah Adams. I totally fell for this playboy bodyguard who swooped in, though rather reluctantly, to help the sweet virginal good girl. My heart lurched for Annie, gosh, when her last date called her boring because she just wanted to find love, right? And enter Will, who soon became her dating coach to help her do just that. So both Will and Annie, I think, could see each other so well despite being such opposites, and they felt safe with each other, to be honest, which really built such a strong foundation to their relationship. I especially loved that Will recognized that Annie was really just looking for someone to give her permission to be herself out loud. And he was that to her and then some. He was such a good man with, a smoking hot exterior, because I do love me some tattoos. That was Will. Loved him. My next favorite book boyfriend of the year goes to Jacob from Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. As if volunteering up his his organ, folks, for Brianna's younger brother isn't enough to make Jacob one of the best book boyfriends. I don't know what else will do it, but there's even more to love about this man. Even loved a three-legged dog, people. His, standing on the book boyfriend list just kept getting higher and higher. I loved how he chose to write Brianna letters, given his extreme anxiety, and how that drew them really closer together in their times together in like the sob closet. He is another book boyfriend who looked and just saw who Brianna is. He understood her and was prepared to do anything to help her trust him in what they had, despite her lack of trust in men, given her past relationship history. His own relationship history was pretty heartbreaking too, but that's what made his all-in actions toward Brianna so much sweeter. Gosh, Jacob, you are one hot doctor, and I totally, totally adored you in Yours Truly. Now, moving on to my favorite book boyfriends of 2023 from the throwback titles I read this year, I'm highlighting a few guys who stood out that I couldn't not include, because even though these books didn't release this year, because they're just amazing. First up is Noah from Say You Swear by Megan Brandy. And I've got to say, he's the reason I'm now including book boyfriends from throwback titles, because he was just incredible. I loved the guy. I think I said it in my review of this book that he is the type of man I hope my daughter finds one day. Someone who is instantly smitten but puts in the time to really get to know her, and someone who loves and cherishes her above all else. I'm totally putting Noah on a pedestal, but he deserves to be there. I loved how he just clicked with Ari, and when they reconnected back at college, he could sense her heartbreak. He was just the best friend to her when she needed one, and never really pushed her, or never did push her for more. He just seemed, again, so wise and mature beyond his 21 years, especially dealing with all the heartbreak that he dealt with in this book. Gosh, it made my list of books that make you ugly cry. So if you haven't listened to that episode, go back to it, because he totally did in this book. But thank you, Megan, for one of the best book boyfriends I've read in a really, really long time. I just loved him. My next favorite book boyfriend, gosh, such a sweetheart, is Luca from Love Light Farms by B.K. Borson. I think I've said this before when I mentioned this book. I normally don't listen to audiobooks, but I totally swooned every time Luca called Stella Lala in this book. It just showed how close these two friends were and how much they already loved each other, even if they couldn't admit it to one another. Luca is the best book boyfriend because he could totally read Stella, and he wouldn't let her hide anything. When he could sense that something was wrong, he totally called her out on it and made her talk about it right then and there, and didn't let it fester, which, communication is everything when it comes to whether it's a friendship or a relationship. And I love that about him. He totally jumped on board with the fake relationship she proposed to win the contest prize money to save her Christmas tree farm. No questions asked, and was there for her at every turn, no matter what. Even when the point of conflict arose in this book, he showed that he is such a good and selfless man. His pain literally jumped off the page to me, and it broke my heart for this man, but he rebounded because he loved Stella so much and was just there for her for what she needed. It was amazing, and I think that part alone is what solidified his place on this list for me. Plus, I should say, the man could really turn up the steam with his bestie. Holy moly. I love Luca so much, and I think you will too if you have not read Love Light Farms yet. Definitely give it a read. Next up is Chase from Breathe by Kristen Ashley. I read this over the summer, It's not hard to love a good cop, and Chase is definitely one of the good ones in a department that was once filled with, several crooked cops. He sacrificed a lot for his mother in his small town, and yet he still doesn't believe he's worthy of Faye given some of the choices he's had to make in the past. But Chase instantly became a favorite book boyfriend because he's that alpha male that I can't help but fall for. And I also love that he never hesitated to act out scenes from the romance books Faye was reading. So that's a total instant winner in my book. And even just saying that out loud, I think we're going to have to come up with an episode for other heroes that do that because it's so much fun to read. But he also earned a spot on this list for being such a protector to the young boy Malachi. Oh man, did that just crack my heart wide open? How softly he approached the boy and just gave of his heart to him. The epilogue was truly something special too in this book. You can learn more about why I love Chase in my podcast episode on the best cop romance books. If you haven't listened to that one, definitely give it a go. All right, last but certainly not least, my favorite book boyfriends of this year goes to Remington from The Redo by Max Monroe. I love a man who is willing to step in and help no matter what when the woman in his life needs it, and that is Remy, though he steps in to help Maria before they're even an item. These two were an item in high school, but they hadn't seen each other until they run into one another in the city as adults when she's pregnant as a surrogate with her deceased sister's child. Yes, that's a mouthful, but it's a great setup for this romance book. And when this man helps to take care of her and her newborn and falls in love with her, oh my gosh, it was the absolute best. But I think I totally skipped over the fact that he helped deliver the baby in an elevator. I mean, swoon. I'm going to be talking more about this book and Remy in an upcoming podcast episode, so you haven't heard the last of him. I absolutely love this book. Remy is just one of those all-around good guys, which earned him a spot on this list. He's fantastic. And that wraps up my episode of Favorite Book Boyfriends of 2023. It was so fun to go back and think about all these male heroes who stole a place in my heart, and I won't soon forget. If you want even more book boyfriends, as I said, check out some of my hero-focused podcast episodes and bookmark my book boyfriends page on the blog where you can find all of my posts on the best book boyfriends of past years to love. Now we're going to kick off 2024 and start collecting a brand new list of favorites, and I cannot wait. Happy reading, happy new year, and talk to you soon.
That's all for this episode of the She Reads Romance Books podcast. I hope you enjoyed it and found some new books to add to your TBR list. If you did, please subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast app. It really helps me reach more romance book lovers like you, and I appreciate your support. If you're a book boyfriend collector like me, then you'll want to join my email list so you never miss a podcast episode or a new book list. Just visit shereadsromancebooks.com/join and sign up today. As a thank you, I'll instantly send you my list of top 10 book boyfriends that will make you swoon. Trust me, you don't want to miss this list. Thank you for listening, and until next time, happy reading.